crashing down.
Lights are lit up. So I said no, 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 it was supposed. They said, 'cause when you let me back,
I rise just like a fiend. When I close my eyes, I can almost see it. When I take a breath, you fill up my lungs. And if my mind worked backwards just for a minute, I'd follow you before the memory's gone. I remember you, you lift my spirit. With you high is all I'm feeling. Remember
Good Lord, I forgot to unmute myself. Well, let's start this all up. Hello, everybody. Welcome once again. Don't worry, we'll cut that up from the start of the show. But hi, everybody. Welcome once again. Talking once again. The title says it in particular. The VP Racing Fuels races at COTA. That is what we are talking about. Feel free to, if you're here, type in chat and all of that. Thank you to Izzy for telling me exactly that I was muted. That makes me feel a lot better. Lip reading 101 class in session. Yeah, now we are actually now you can actually hear me and talk, hear me talk and just go on about what's going on. But either way, that thing, where is it? Right there? I can't point. Point is that little picture that fell, so that was a little scary in the meantime. Point is, this is very exciting. We are talking about that. And so, going back to it, what is this VP Racing Fuel Series by IMSA? Well, they decided to join forces with NASCAR this last weekend, and the NASCAR Cup and Xfinity Series needed an extra partner as they kicked out the trucks for this weekend because, well, the trucks would not be able to handle this short course is probably what they thought. They added the VP Racing Fuel Series, which is owned by the France family as well. Well, IMSA is owned by the France family as well, and so it worked out perfectly. Anyways, what is this VP Racing Fuel Series? Well, it's a series that was sanctioned by IMSA about literally 3 years ago, because the years before that, they just had the LMP3 series, which also added another sort of open wheel car sort of thing series back then. So they competed, and then they kicked that series out and just completed with the one and only LMP3s, most of them by Ligier, some of them by Orca, if any. Really, those are your two that would really compete for a while, but IMSA saw that there was no real success from that, and so then they added the GT4 series, or GSX as they call it, 3 years ago, and from then on, they went on to, well, make this an interesting series. So, with that being said, this is how the series really kind of went down. And it was pretty interesting, to say the least. From that first inaugural season, they only had the GT4 cars with them, and for the 2 years down the line, they only had the GT4 cars with the LMP3s. Then this year, they decided to add the GTD-X class, or the GT3 car series. And so that was very interesting in itself. So it made things very interesting in general, like I mentioned before. And that was something very special in a way. When that happened, Samantha Tan Racing decided, well, let's move out of none other than the GT World Challenge Americas series and join this other series for the IMSA. And I've gotten to talk to Sam a bit, but really it's just like, look, it was a next step, or not even really talking to Sam, but reading, her quotes from the whole thing of that move and saying, look, this is the proper next step. I can't stay in GT World Challenge Americas forever, because the top of the top, yes, GT World Challenge Americas is there, especially in GT World Challenge Europe or SRO Europe. That's a really great series. But you look at it, you look at WEC, you look at IMSA, that's where you want to be. You want to be at that top of the top, racing in GTD Pro, racing in GTD Pro Am, because of that fact of just, it's, you're racing against the best of the best in the world. Even those drivers still come over. So, going back to it, of course, the series holds the classic GTD X cars, the classic GT3 cars. Ferrari, Porsche, BMW. And really, that is it. No Mustang, no Corvette in this series. At least yet for this inaugural GT3 season. We'll see how successful this gets. And it feels like it is extremely successful in my opinion because of just the way that it has been. It's a 45-minute race. Each session, or each race session, I should say, is 45 minutes. It is a sprint. You do not need to pit at all. The only off chance that you would have to pit is because you would get involved in a wreck or a puncture, unfortunately. Well, anyways, let's head over to the start of this weekend. And of course, the start of this weekend had your classic practice and qualifying, which I was at the racetrack for exactly both of those. In practice, well, let's begin with this. One bone to pick with the way that this was done this weekend. For Friday, the gates were open after practice 1 for the IMSA VP Racing Fuels Sports Car Challenge. I don't understand why. No media were allowed in either at that time. But it's going to be interesting. But it was just an interesting part right there. We'll get to the comments in a section, or we'll get to the comments in a second here really quickly because Izzy brings up a good point that we'll talk about in a second. But this was just a bone to pick with me. The gates were opened after the first practice, which is very, very strange in my opinion, due to the fact of why? Yes, it's a NASCAR race weekend, but some of us were here for that exact series. If you're going to add a series, you'd probably guess that people want to see every single moment of racing. That would include a double practice 1. I don't know. That's how I feel. GT World Challenge Americas does that for, for the last weekend at Indy, which still makes no sense. They have a Thursday, I guess it's technically they call it a test session, so that's why it's private, which that's understandable. But no, this is not a test session. This is a open practice. But yet they did not allow fans in till after that. Whatever. That just boggled my mind in general. But anyways, that was just the one thing that I have a bone to pick. Well, anyways, going back to the comments real quick before we really jump into things. Izzy says, LMP3's racing GT4s has staying power. And it's true. It does. It really works well with GT4s and LMP3s racing because of the fact that, well, there's a legit gap in power, in the racing power of these two cars. When you add GT3s, and this was an interesting fun fact about it, with the GT3s racing they were not able to have that gap in qualifying. So we'll kind of jump right into it because that's really where we had the live time and score. And I think we might have had live time and scoring for practice, but I didn't realize that we did. But really measuring it, because that's kind of the way that at least race number 2 was going to be measured by in that qualifying. The GTD-Xs, the GT3s, most of the drivers, even in the bronze class, were running sometimes faster lap times than the LMP3s, just off of pure pace alone. There was only 1 or 2 drivers that had faster lap times than the LMP3s over the GT3s. Which is normal because if you look at that series, again, it allows bronze class drivers in each category. And so you have LMP3s, you have two battles going on. Bronze class and pro class. Or silver class, I should say. Then on the bottom in the GTDX, same deal. You have 2 races going on in that class alone, with the silver class is racing against each other, and the pro class is racing, or in the bronze class is racing against each other, to be exact. How did those all shape up? Well, it was a pretty interesting thing because, again, taking a look, Samantha Tan racing alone, they showed pace. And this was the interesting thing that I thought was very cool, is that, well, you only have so long to practice and you only have so long for qualifying. So you're going to run every single lap, most likely. You're going to run every single lap. Only once will you probably go down pit lane, and that's just to cool off and just to, I don't know. Because I could not tell, because the front stretch for Friday was blocked off. Yet you could still buy tickets for that front stretch. You could still buy tickets for T1. But technically, both of those were blocked off and closed for the grandstand. So you had to go into the backstretch where they make the crazy cut into the backstretch, and then you go into the double right-hander. Check out double left-hander, where it's apex, go wide for another apex before you go into what is in the stadium section. That's where you're at in the stadium section. It's where they had everybody sit. And then as well as going into the long right-hander, the Istanbul corner, to be exact, as everyone knows it from around the world at Circuit of the Americas. Still a phenomenal track layout. I really enjoyed it. But going back to it, really everybody was running every single lap as they possibly could in practice and in qualifying, which was really good for themselves, just to get used to that track, just get used to all of it. It was so interesting to see on that practice. I was very, very proud of it to just go and see. Anyways, on the so off of that qualifying, Samantha Tan Racing did a decent job. We're able to, I believe, let me bring it up correctly just to make sure that I know where everyone is, because Samantha Tan Racing's Twitter account, or X's, the X account, which again, just, it's Twitter, their Twitter account. Again, the social media admin talking to you. Phenomenal job all weekend long. Kept us up to date as best as possible, because IMSA doesn't do the best job of differentiating the bronze class to the silver class when it came down to it, especially in this weekend. It just gives you all the drivers where they are at. So you see Samantha Tan being in like 5th place or something like that, and you think, oh, okay, she has no chance of winning. But no, the social media admin did a phenomenal job of making sure who was in the bronze class and where she was in relation to that. So go all the way back to the start of the weekend. Okay, here we go for the second time this year. It's race week. Practice 1 is underway. That's where it was. Practice is done and dusted here at Circuit of the Americas, and we're all set for quali in an hour. We've got 2 races tomorrow. Okay. Storm. They didn't really say where they were, but that's a wrap on quali. STR Samantha will start race 1 tomorrow morning from bronze class, pole and 5th out of all of the GT3 cars. So that's where they were able to differentiate, which again, great job by the STR admin. The new this is what even Samantha Tan Racing said, and we're kind of just backing this all up again off of the social media admin, off of Twitter. After qualifying on bronze, pole, 5th in GT3, STR Samantha is ready for race 1. The new track layout was a lot of fun in practice, and we're excited to see how things go in a race setting. Tune in at 8:40 a.m. Central. That's when, of course, the broadcast was. But either way, the race, of course, was going to start in that 30 minutes, and then the green was out. And off the start of the race, Samantha Tan lost a couple of spots. Oh yeah, you're hearing my phone buzz. Yes, indeed, that is the BMW. When you start up the car, that is my notification tone. That's a phenomenal thing. Is he pointing out the obvious, or not the obvious, but yeah, no, I really like the chimes. It's pretty great notifications, in my opinion. But anyways, then of course it moved up into 4th overall at the start of the race, increasing the bronze class lead in that first race. And then under 10 minutes to go, STR maintains the bronze class lead, running 4th in GT3, and basically stayed there from the end. So this was interesting. I did not read this, and I didn't necessarily notice this. But the LMP3 cars, 2 of the LMP3 cars, ran out of fuel with less than a minute to go, giving Sam kind of a better position. But either way, wins the bronze class. Was very impressive for that first one, and then was able to get the second bronze class victory after a little bit of a stressful start to the race, losing that first place position right off the bat, and was very nerve-wracking in that sense of, well, oh goodness, what's going to happen here? Having to race the GMG racing team, aka E-Boost racing fuel, or just, yeah, the E-Boost car, the E-Boost Porsche. And it was a very difficult battle because it was kind of annoying as the silver class got further and further away in the GT3s. Samantha Tan had enough time to run them down, in my opinion. If she was able to get past the GMG driver faster, it did not, which again was fine because that's who she was racing for that bronze race victory. That's all that she was racing for, was to get past him, and took her time, and was a little frustrating because she, try to go into the inside and then go back out to try to send a dummy or anything like that. The GMG driver held his position time and time again. Then Sam finally had to go for it and was able to exactly do that, gets past him in the S's, and from then on, it was basically race over. Now, the interesting part about that, not only making the pass, was all of a sudden she kind of just slowed down and took her time and not necessarily slowed down, but made sure to bring it home and kept her distance, because at times it looked a little more scary than it could have been, I guess, in my eyes, from a fan's perspective, from somebody watching it on T1. All of a sudden, you saw her gain the lead to about 3 car lengths, then come back a lap later. He's closed the gap in to about a car length, or a little bit of half a car length. It was very scary in general for that time. But again, I'm watching this as a fan. I don't have any media pass. I'm not down, on pit lane, giving updates like that. I tried to do that for the STR Discord, but really decided not to. Just enjoyed the racing, filmed as much content as I possibly could, but it was a very intense race in a way. Even though I bet you from Samantha Tan's eyes, if I were to ask you what did you feel about that race, you probably would have been like, yeah, it was great. We were able to, once we got that position back, it was smooth sailing from there. But as a fan, as somebody, that was nerve-wracking. It was a nerve-wracking into the race. I was very excited when she crossed the line in first place. Of course, flashing her lights as well, as she was very happy to get that victory in the end, and made me smile. And then, of course, got in my car with my father, and we left the racetrack to make the 4-hour drive back home, and that was very, very nice. Anyways, a bronze class victory, 2 bronze class victories in a row. Once again, she sweeps the podium, the top step of the podium at Circuit of the Americas for the second year in a row, this time in the IMSA VP Racing Fuels Sports Car Challenge. Last year she did that was in a 90-minute race, 2 90-minute races at the GT World Challenge Americas, where I got to also ask her a couple of questions, and she gave me 40 seconds of her time on the grid for that second race, and I thank her very much for allowing me to do that last year. It still is one of the top things in my memory by far. Interesting person to show up at the racetrack as well, Neil Verhagen. Neil Verhagen was there helping Sam out that weekend, with, of course, Samantha Tan's father. So they were both, of course, on pit lane, kind of coach. I guess Neil Verhagen more coaching her through or whatever. Either way, a BMW driver helping her out. Mr. Boy Wonder, as always, the man himself was at the racetrack, which was awesome. And I got to talk to him, of course, right before race 2 started, which is always super fun. Yeah, he's doing well. We talked a little bit, of course, side note, we talked a little bit about that Daytona 24 hours race that he was in, which was fun, and he's looking forward to Sebring, so all is well with that man. But moving on, once again, now we're going to look at this this article that was made 5 hours ago by www.racers-behindthehelmet.com, and they just, of course, broke it down as much as possible for this win. And there's some quotes from Samantha Tan, and this was made by, let's see if we can't find out who posted this, who the writer was, I should say. It doesn't say the writer's name, but it, again, by racers-behindthehelmet.com. It's an interesting article. Samantha Tan takes double class victory in IMSA VP Racing Sports Car Challenge at COTA. Quote from this: came into this weekend with the same enthusiasm and knowledge from last season and drove my heart out at Circuit of the Americas once again. Samantha Tan dominated IMSA VP Racing Sports Car Challenge bronze class at COTA, securing back-to-back class victories and claiming the lead in the championship standings. I believe that was, well, Sam with that quote right off the start. But anyways, that's what she had to say off of that. Samantha Tan Racing, also really quick shout out to Samantha Tan Racing's photographer. What a phenomenal, he took some incredible pictures, amazing pictures. He or she took some amazing pictures. Have some of them saved on my phone because they're just absolutely spectacular photos, and just like the one that I'm looking at right now. But either way, Samantha Tan secured her first class victory in the IMSA VP Racing Sports Car Challenge, sweeping the weekend in the GTDX bronze class at Circuit of the Americas, the second round of the series. Tan has been making significant strides in global sports car racing, first climbing the SRO America ladder from touring cars to GT4, then continuing her first international campaigns, including a multiple title-winning season in the 24-hour series in 2021. Soon after, the young Canadian driver and owner of Samantha Tan Racing stepped up to the GT3 platform, competing in the GT World Challenge both in Europe and the US in 2024. She was a standout competitor in the GT World Challenge America Pro-Am class, securing 3 class wins and 10 podiums, ultimately earning the vice champion title. Okay, there's that's not true. Yes, the co-champion in 2024 is correct. But one thing that I will mention, Tan has been making significant strides this year. Soon after, the young Canadian driver and owner Samantha Tan stepped up to the GT3 platform, competing in the GT World Challenge both in Europe and the US in 2024. No, she did not step into the GT World Challenge in Europe in 2024. She decided not to race in that year. She did the 24 hours of Barcelona only in 2024. In 2023, she was able to race with Rinaldi Racing in 2023, that full campaign. You can see on her YouTube, on the SC Racing YouTube channel, where she put out a couple of vlogs where they ran at, Monza. And then, of course, right after Monza, racing at the likes of Barcelona, the 24 hours of Spa. And, of course, in France, where it was the course correction, as we called it, for the last time that anybody would see that Ferrari ran before we go to the 296. And then she raced the 296 for a couple of races at the Nürburgring, as well as the following race right after that, with a couple of other drivers that raced with her. So that was interesting in itself, and so that was very, very cool to see. Either way, I needed to correct that because that's kind of frustrating when I read that. That was something that was interesting. But either way, and the vice champion title, of course, we've talked about that multiple times. You don't need to really get into that. In 2025, Tan announced her debut in the IMSA Sport Package following the introduction of the GTDX class in the IMSA VP Racing Sports Car Challenge. This season marks Sam's first solo racing campaign, and she tackled the first weekend at Daytona, supporting the Roar before the 24 on a circuit where she had minimal prior experience. Nevertheless, Samantha consistently fought for the overall GTDX podium and ultimately secured 2 runner-up finishes in the bronze class, making for a highly encouraging debut. Now heading to COTA for the second round, Samantha Tan Racing aimed to take a step higher. Tan has always been quick at the Texan venue and looked to capitalize on her experience at the circuit, albeit the series now using the shorter 3.862 kilometer layout introduced this year as a series supported the NASCAR event. At the wheel of her number 38 BMW M4 GT3, Tan took the early lead in practice with 20 minutes to go in this session, becoming the first driver to dip below the 135 mark. Adam Adelson then found more time and topped the GTDX overall, but Tan remained unbeaten in the bronze class. She ended the session fourth overall with a 134.603 in a strong start to the weekend. A similar outcome followed in the second practice session, with Tan making significant gains. She clocked a 133.566, moving up to second overall while continuing to lead the bronze class midway through the session. By the end, she had maintained her top spot in bronze, having improved by nearly a full second between sessions. Later in the day came qualifying. In the opening minutes, Adelson took the overall lead, with Musial setting the early benchmark in the bronze class. Tan's first representative lap was a 135.332, placing her 6th overall in the GTDX and second among the bronze drivers. She then improved to a 134.4, claiming the top spot in bronze and closing in the overall top 3 with 5 minutes left on the clock. Samantha then broke into the 133s for the first time, setting a 133.971, giving her almost a 1 second margin over the second fastest bronze driver, Musial, as As the checkered flag fell, Tan secured the bronze class pole position and finished 5th overall in a strong qualifying session, which was led by the Turner Motorsport BMW of Walker in the overall GTDX category. Well, congratulations to Jake Walker on that impressive, of course, weekend. This is just me talking. It was very impressive from him, being in the silver class and just having so much pace from himself is so impressive in general. Jake Walker, we know, is going to have a bright future. So very exciting there. Anyways, moving on. Samantha then broke through the 133s. Yep, there we go. Okay, so we did all of that. On Saturday morning, it was time for the first race of the weekend, with Samantha starting from 5th overall and on pole for the bronze class in her first race on the shorter COTA layout. As the green flag waved, several GTDX cars jostled for position. I saw that very clearly, and T1 was a madhouse, but she was able to get through T1 without any car coming from Narnia to take anybody out. Thank goodness. The Tan got boxed in at turn 1 and dropped to 7th overall and 3rd among the bronze entries, now chasing Kyle Washington. The Canadian made a successful move on the GMG Racing Porsche on lap 3, reclaiming 2nd in class. She then set her sights on Musial's Conquest Racing Ferrari, the class leader. In clear air, Samantha was immediately faster, clocking a 135.1, gaining a full second, and overtook Musial just 1 lap later to reclaim the top spot and move up to 5th overall by lap 4. Perez Kampak was not far ahead as Tan dipped under the 135 mark. She continued to close in just a few tenths behind the AF Corsa Ferrari in 4th overall. On lap 5, she made another clean pass, moving up another position. Just ahead, GTDX leader Adam Adelson spun in the S's while battling with the Turner Motorsport BMW of Walker. As Wright Motorsport Porsche went around, Tan was right behind, trying to capitalize on the situation while also fending off Perez Kampak. While Adelson managed to recover and open a 1 second buffer, Tan pulled away from Perez, running consistently in 4th overall and maintaining her lead in the bronze class. Tan settled into her rhythm by setting a best lap of 1:33.7, while keeping the gap to Adelson stable. However, lapped GSX traffic allowed Pettis to close back in by lap 13. Samantha had shrugged off the pressure once again and was back within striking distance of Adelson, running competitive lap times, I should say. With 18 minutes to go, Muss attempted an ambitious move on GSX frontrunner Walsh. Second place Ferrari collided with the BMW M4 GT4, sending it into the barriers, but the race remained green. Yeah, I didn't realize it was Muss who did that and colliding with him. It's just wild. In the first race, with 18 minutes to go, Muss attempted, without interruptions. Tan continued her charge in fourth overall. However, in the final 5 minutes, Pettis intensified the pressure. As several cars ran out of fuel on the final lap, Pettis managed to sneak past, taking fourth overall in GTDX. Tan tried to fight back, but crossed the line just a 1/10 behind. Crucially, she retained the bronze class lead, securing her first victory in the IMSA VP Racing Sports Car Challenge. Tan was also the first bronze-rated driver to finish across all classes. Later in the afternoon, it was time for the second and final race of the weekend. The driver owner of Samantha Tan Racing aimed to build on her earlier success and secure back-to-back class wins. She started fourth overall in GTDX and once again led the bronze class. At the green flag, Tan took the outside line into T1, while the 2A, of course, Ferraris of Muss and Pettis dived to the inside, playing it safe to avoid contact. She dropped to 6th overall and second in bronze, with Kyle Washington's GMG Porsche slipping ahead. However, her pace was immediately stronger than the number 32 Porsche. She applied pressure on Washington while also opening a gap to the cars behind, including the number 95 Turner Motorsport BMW of Barletta and the Lone Star Racing Mercedes of Austin. Tan gained a position overall in GTDX, while Adelson pitted with a puncture on lap 3. And she continued to run right behind Washington. She stayed patient and executed a clean overtake on lap 7, reclaiming the bronze class lead with 32 minutes remaining. Once ahead, Tan immediately opened up a 2-second gap and set her sights on Pettis, who was 3 seconds up the road. She went under the 135 mark and was nearly a second faster per lap. By lap 11, she had closed the gap within 1 second of the number 50 Ferrari. However, Pettis responded and maintained a gap over the next few laps. As the race settled, Tan controlled fourth overall and remained the bronze leader. However, with 10 minutes to go, Washington began closing in again. With 3 minutes left, Pettis, Tan, and Washington were separated by just a few seconds, all battling for the final spot on the overall GTDX podium. On the final lap, Tan held her ground and took the checkered flag once again as the top bronze-rated driver in the field, securing her second class win of the day. The Canadian finished just 1 second shy of her first overall podium, concluding a strong second weekend in the IMSA VP Racing Sports Car Challenge at Circuit of the Americas. Now here's where things get interesting. We get to hear her quotes. This One is for the girls. Samantha commented. Another weekend sweep at one of my favorite tracks on the calendar came into this weekend with the same enthusiasm and knowledge from last season and drove my heart out at Circuit of the Americas once again, she continued. It's always such a pleasure to drive here. Huge thank you to my team for the incredible car. It was on rails. We've got a bit of a break until Mid-Ohio, but I'll announce my upcoming April race very soon. Thank you everyone who came to support and tuned in. Tano sits fourth in the GTDX overall standings with 1,060 points and leads the bronze class with 1,340 points, holding a 90-point advantage over Kyle Washington after the first two doubleheaders. The IMSA VP Racing Sports Car Challenge will return to action on June 6th through the 8th. Okay. Well, she announced something big in this interview right off the bat. So now we're going to break this down really quickly. Did not expect to be able to have this, as we're just about to hit the hour mark of talking. But this is very interesting. We have a break until Mid-Ohio, but I'll be announcing my upcoming April race very soon. Okay, well, there's a couple of races in April. Let's look at, of course, a couple of the schedules now that we can kind of break some things down. We expect her to stay in, of course, the sports car area and, of course, in the GT3 car, which this makes perfect sense. Where is this team also located? ST Racing, number 38. They're located in Orange County, Los Angeles, to be exact, around that area. And so this makes perfect sense. Just makes perfect sense. With some time down, I don't expect her to go out of state. But I do expect her to do what she did last year. Or not out of state, I should say. Out of the country. Do expect her to do exactly what she did last year, though, kind of with the schedule. She does have the extra GT4. She does have another GT3 car. I believe she still has both. Calendar seems to be simple. Seems to be easy. And it is. April 25th through the 27th in April is Circuit of the Americas. Sonoma Raceway, United States of America, round 1 and 2 in the GT World Challenge Americas calendar. Just kind of looking back at it. The gaps are there. Which makes me believe also that Adam Allison and Wright Motorsports will also come back, as well as Trent, into GT World Challenge Americas. They're heading back to GT World Challenge Americas, and it makes sense now. Now, Neil Verhagen does not know. He doesn't have any answers for that. I kind of try to ask him. He's like, I got no idea. This is, a Sam question. And she's, of course, saying now she'll announce it soon. That's my prediction. Hopefully that prediction is correct, because that's always a fun series. So that's really all I got on that. So very, very exciting for this season for Samantha Tan Racing. They lead in that championship. I would expect them to go back to GT World Challenge Americas now, on the off chance that she does go to Europe. That would be very interesting, but there are two races that kind of come up that I always think about. Is that series as well. But who knows? So that'll do it. Kind of wrapping things up here. Very successful weekend for her. And looking forward to the next races. But yeah, that'll do it. Breaking down all of it. hopefully you all enjoyed. I'll see you all very soon.